life. And here's everything and every moment that I wanted to tell you how much I love you and like how proud I am of you. And of all things, it's making me emotional.
In a podcast moment that's gone viral, comedian and political commentator Bill Maher took aim at Meghan Markle in a way only he can. With his signature blend of sarcasm and sharp wit, Maher mocked what he called her fake tears during past interviews and public appearances.
Meghan Markle Googled, is the race card an actual card?
What started as a comedic jab quickly turned into a cultural flashpoint, sparking laughter in the studio and heated debates online. Here's a breakdown of what went down.
I wasn't expecting that one. Yeah, they're just it's just so great. This is why it's so nice to not have makeup on.
Bill Maher calls out Meghan Markle's fake tears on air. Bill Maher has never shied away from controversy, and his scathing criticism of Meghan Markle in a live podcast session was no exception. Maher went into unusual area when he called out what he called Meghan's fake tears during a program about public image and celebrity sensitivity. He made fun of her teary-eyed looks and dramatic pauses during her 2021 Oprah Winfrey interview, joking that those tears were as real as reality TV. There was a mixture of gasps and laughs from his crowd, which was made up of both devoted followers and inquisitive listeners. Maher clarified his argument by emphasizing how contemporary celebrities, particularly those like Meghan, who balance Hollywood and royalty, have mastered the art of creating emotional moments to maximize their influence in the media. Although it struck a chord with some, he said, her depiction of suffering appeared unduly staged and controlled. He made a joke that made others laugh even harder. It's like she's reading off a teleprompter only she can see. He continued after that. Maher explored the more general topic of how famous personalities deliberately utilize media outlets to influence stories. In order to maintain public sympathy while preserving Meghan's marketability, he presented her interviews as more about brand building than being honest. Maher claims that the distinction between manipulation and true emotion becomes hazy when tears are used as influencing weapons. This was a scathing cultural critique, not only a joke. Maher was speaking about the monetization of personal suffering, which he perceived as a developing trend in the media. And the most well-known example of someone using emotional appeal as a PR tool, in his opinion, was Meghan Markle. Regardless of whether you thought his perspective was energizing or insensitive, it definitely got people talking. The crowd erupts as Maher mocks Meghan's emotional claims. The live podcast audience was unable to control itself as Maher continued to expose Meghan's alleged emotional theatricality. Was that a tear or just a camera cue? He said cynically, imitating her theatrical pauses and well-timed blinking. A mixture of frightened and unrestrained laughing erupted from the audience. It was quintessential Maher, controversial, provocative, and unquestionably entertaining. This was a throwback moment for Maher fans. He has a lengthy history of criticizing hypocrisy, particularly in the political correct and elite circles. They regarded his jeering as a necessary piercing of what they perceived to be celebrity sanctimony, not malicious. The strong response from the audience demonstrated a need for someone to publicly express what many people secretly believe: that certain famous individuals like Meghan utilize emotion as a branding strategy. Additionally, Maher's satire was successful because it appealed to a more widespread sense of skepticism in the public domain. There have been conflicting reactions to Meghan's previous interviews, whether they were with Oprah, her podcast Archetypes, or her docu-series with Prince Harry. Some people think she's courageous for confronting institutions and disclosing her mental health issues. Others believe she uses her position to dominate the narrative and win sympathy by portraying herself as a victim who never stops. Maher was fully aware of this difference and capitalized on it. Importantly, Maher wasn't only using his words to startle people. He was expressing how many people are frustrated by the fuzziness of the distinction between performance and honesty. Maher's joke got to the heart of the matter. In a society where every celebrity moment is meticulously staged and edited, at what point does emotional expression cease being genuine and begin to be practiced? Maher takes aim at Meghan's public image in brutal fashion. Bill Maher first made light of Meghan Markle's emotional outbursts before focusing on her meticulously maintained public persona. He examined how she went from being a little-known actress to being one of the most divisive personalities in contemporary celebrity culture. He said, "She's not just acting anymore." The plot of her reality show, which she produces, directs, and stars in, is always about her suffering. It was a biting observation that reflected a broader unease with the way Meghan has managed her public persona. Meghan's sensitivity is part of a bigger PR effort, according to Maher, who attacked the planned nature of her media appearances. Even the most candid moments appeared to be deliberately manufactured, with dramatic pauses under soft lighting, close-ups intended for emotional effect, and tears pouring at the perfect angle in her Netflix docuseries with Prince Harry, he said. The audience laughed when Maher said, "It's trauma with a trailer." His sarcasm highlighted a broader issue. In the era of digital media, human struggles are becoming more and more theatricalized. Maher's criticism, however, went beyond media manipulation. He said that Meghan's tactic feeds into a societal preoccupation with victimization. Being a victim is currency in this day and age, he stated, and Meghan is profiting from each interview. The comment generated a lot of online debate, particularly among people who believe that Meghan's hardships such as racism, media interference, and mental health deserve more compassion than mockery. However, Maher's framing made people reevaluate how much of her story is performance and how much is real. There was a reason for this ruthless dismantling. According to Maher's remarks, public compassion should be scrutinized, particularly when it's being exploited to promote a media empire, sell books, and get streaming partnerships. Not only was his takedown personal, but it also challenged a system that prioritizes fake suffering over true fortitude. And he saw Meghan as the ideal representation of that dynamic. Bill Maher's hilarious takedown of Meghan Markle goes viral. Maher's takedown quickly became widely shared. Clips from the show started making the rounds on YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, and Twitter within hours. Hashtags like "Hold Maher on Meghan," "How Fake Tears," and "How's Royal Rant" swept the internet. While detractors criticized Maher's remarks as being insensitive and unduly harsh, others applauded him for saying what needed to be said. Whatever one's thoughts, the moment broke through the digital clutter, and Maher excels at that. Users of social media swiftly divided into two groups. Maher's courage to confront a lady who many believe is protected by political correctness and celebrity status was praised by one faction as a sign of his honesty. At last, someone who has the courage to say it. Read one well-liked tweet with more than 50,000. For others, it was humor masquerading as bullying, making fun of a woman for shedding tears about mental health. Another person commented, "That's the lowest of lows." Beyond Maher and Meghan, the argument turned into a conflict over cultural norms, authenticity, and free speech in the contemporary media environment. The news was quickly taken up by traditional media sources. The podcast clip's reach was increased by coverage on mainstream news outlets, conservative talk shows, and entertainment blogs. Some questioned if Maher's criticism went too far, while others presented his comments as just another instance of his signature anti-woke statements. A few reporters drew notice to the irony. Maher had arguably done the same thing by making fun of Meghan for trying to get attention, and it had worked. In spite of the criticism, Maher seemed unmoved. He leaned into the issue on social media and implied that more was to come. He is known for doubling back instead of apologizing. His podcast had accomplished its goal of controlling the discourse. Regardless of whether it was deemed humorous or callous, Maher's widely shared takedown served as a reminder to viewers of an unsettling reality. When public personalities allow themselves to be investigated, they have little control over which aspects of their lives are examined. Comedian questions Meghan's authenticity in live podcast. Bill Maher shifted the emphasis to authenticity, a term that has practically become hallowed in today's media. We're always told to be real, but what does real even mean when everything is branded, edited, and filtered? He said. He went on to criticize Meghan Markle's public demeanor harshly, referring to her as packaged authenticity. He asserted that everything about her, including her voice and clothing, seems too staged to be genuine. Maher challenged the central tenets of Meghan's story, particularly her repeated assertions that she only wanted to tell her truth. He maintained that viewers have a right to wonder why someone would sell their own suffering as there is a distinction between subjective truth and objective reality. Maher remarked, "She doesn't speak truth to power. She uploads it in 4K, edits it, and sells it." The audience chuckled, but the point was clear. Honesty is now scarce in the era of performative vulnerability. He also attacked the contemporary practice of leveraging emotional confessionals as a kind of media capital, which he dubbed the Oprah effect. Meghan's high-profile interviews, according to Maher, feel less like personal recovery and more like business launches. According to him, it's not raw if every raw moment has a film crew behind it, it's scripted. Her narration style reminded him of a Netflix drama, replete with a well-developed storyline and well-timed emotions. His broader issue was cultural. Maher said that we live in a period where people honor somebody for showcasing their struggle, rather than for conquering it. He came to the conclusion, authenticity has been hijacked, and one of its biggest influencers is Meghan. Because he wasn't only referring to Meghan, his remarks touched a raw chord. He was criticizing a whole generation of public individuals who had transformed honesty into branding and trauma into content. Maher's bold statement, "She's acting, not crying." Everything Maher was attempting to convey was captured in one of the podcast's most often cited quotes. "She's acting, not crying." The statement, which was delivered with flawless comic timing, left the live audience in a state of startled silence and laughter. It was a proclamation, not only a joke. Maher was accusing Meghan of utilizing the language of sensitivity while maintaining solid control over the story, transforming her emotional moments into performances. He notably cited Meghan's interview facial movements, pointing out how her eyes swelled without ever releasing a real cry. He compared it to seeing a method actor midway through a monologue. "If this were TV, oh wait, it basically is. She'd be up for a Golden Globe," he said, veering into an Emmy joke. Despite his scathing tone, his criticism revealed a larger issue. In public conversation, the distinction between performance and reality has blurred. Maher's analogy wasn't arbitrary. He discussed the psychological toll that actual trauma takes and how it typically lacks dramatic music and ideal lighting. The luxury of editing their suffering for prime time is not available to real people who are going through it, he stated. Meghan and a media culture that prioritizes highly manufactured emotion over quiet resiliency were both directly challenged by it. In typical Maher flair, he delivered a punch to end the segment, saying, "Look, if she's crying, she deserves empathy. But what if she's pretending to cry? She then merits a review, and I gave it a 1-star rating." The audience burst out. It was amusing, harsh, and most importantly, unmistakably Maher, who doesn't hold anything back and challenges viewers to think critically about what they see on film. Audience shocked as Maher rips into Meghan Markle. Even some of Maher's devoted followers were taken aback by the ferocity of his remarks on Meghan Markle, even though a large portion of his audience is accustomed to his bold and frequently combative comedy. There were loud gasps in the studio when the jokes moved from lighthearted imitation to in-depth character analysis. Some audience members were clearly taken aback by Maher's willingness to go thus far, as well as the subject of his jokes. Even so, most people chuckled, if somewhat uneasily. Almost immediately, Maher acknowledged the tension in the room. He questioned rhetorically, "Too far?" before continuing, "Oh, come on, she's a duchess, not a god." There was a mixture of anxious laughter and applause for the joke, reminding the audience that public personalities who seek attention cannot expect to be immune from criticism. He moved closer. He said, "She didn't just enter the limelight. She constructed her own fucking spotlight and put it in her mansion in Montecito." The way Maher moved from humor to intellectual area was what gave this moment its powerful effect. He asked why certain people are exempt from criticism, particularly those who portray themselves as progressive or weak. "Public sympathy should be scrutinized if you're making money off of it," he contended. His tone made it apparent that fame, even for admirable causes, does not exclude one from mockery. Not only did this podcast piece go viral for its hilarity, but it also addressed a bigger message. Maher was making fun of performance, not trauma. And in the ensuing online discussion, that distinction, albeit subtle, became crucial. Some accused him of brutality, while others commended him for slicing through the emotional clutter. However, Maher did what he does best. which is to express what most people are thinking, but are too scared to express. Bill Maher jokes about Meghan's royal drama in Podcast Moment. When Maher turned his focus from Meghan's tearful interviews to her whole story with the British royal family, he naturally had a field day. He remarked, "Who knew that the plot twists in Buckingham Palace were better than those in Game of Thrones?" With the ironic moniker Megxit, the Netflix saga, he ridiculed the hysteria surrounding Meghan and Prince Harry's retirement from royal responsibilities. He focused on the couple's assertion that they were leaving the royal life to pursue their solitude. You start a podcast, go on a worldwide press tour, and secure a $100 million Netflix deal because you want privacy? That's public relations, not privacy, Maher joked. The crowd let up a yell. Maher's explanation condensed the long-discussed inconsistency in Meghan and Harry's behavior into a single direct joke. Maher also made remarks on Meghan's portrayal of her tenure in the royal family. He said, "She claimed that being a royal was like being in a cage." "You mean that cage with diamond tiaras, castles, and butlers?" Although his satire did not minimize such difficulties, it did draw attention to how out of touch some of her grievances seemed to the general public. His message is that there is a spectrum of pain and that not all adversities are worthy of a documentary. Beyond merely making jokes, Maher posed a more significant query. What occurs when those who have incredibly privileged lifestyles try to portray themselves as oppressed? He cautioned that it might sabotage fruitful discussions on poverty and inequity. He asserted that if everyone is a victim, then none is. The essence of his criticism was encapsulated in that statement, which was severe yet thought-provoking. Maher believed that Meghan's royal drama was more about appearances than it was about justice, and it was well received by the crowd. Meghan Markle mocked over emotional displays. Bill Maher doesn't hold back. Bill Maher had definitely progressed from a one-liner at this stage of the episode. His criticism of Meghan Markle has developed into a comprehensive indictment of what he referred to as emotional performance culture. He examined Meghan's media appearances in general, as well as the larger trend of emotional outbursts meant to win over the audience. "She constantly plays the part of the bravest woman alive," Maher said, "and every time she speaks, it feels like an audition." Although that was a chilly assessment, many people who feel overloaded by the abundance of celebrity confessionals in the media found resonance in it. Maher also criticized Meghan's delivery, pointing out how she conveys emotion with controlled eye contact, breathy tones, and pauses. He made a joke, saying, "It's like watching someone read a script written by a crisis PR firm." He even conjectured that, similar to how performers prepare for a play, her crew would practice these scenes beforehand. Before Maher showed out how well these interviews are lighted, scheduled, and edited, the concept sounded absurd. "It's a rollout, not a breakdown, when you have a production crew," he continued. Crucially, Maher connected Meghan's performances to the monetization of pain, a larger media tendency. Maher maintained that public vulnerability has turned into a marketing strategy, citing examples such as YouTubers sobbing into their ring lights and celebrities leveraging pain to market memoirs. He said, "We're watching marketing, not therapy." Meghan has emerged as one of this landscape's most identifiable and lucrative faces. Some listeners retaliated, accusing Maher of being nasty, while others supported his interpretation as essential humor. They maintained that comedians like Maher play a crucial role in exposing the artifice when emotive storylines are used as a weapon to stifle critics or evade responsibility. It seems that he wanted to make fun of what happens when suffering is staged for the general public rather than pain per se. Maher's Meghan roast sparks debate online. Maher's roast sparked an internet uproar, as was to be expected. Meghan Markle was no longer the exclusive focus of the argument. It also served as a springboard for more general conversations about free speech, media reliability, celebrity victimization, and even gender dynamics. Maher's supporters applauded him for slicing through the emotional haze and pointing out what they saw to be blatant deception. One admirer tweeted, "She's being questioned, not bullied." And that's all right. Critics, on the other hand, said that Maher was punching down. They maintained that despite Meghan's public persona, it is reckless to make fun of her emotional suffering and mental health disclosures. particularly at a time when mental health is finally receiving the attention it deserves. Several mental health advocates said that even if the delivery, like Meghan's, seems extremely polished, skepticism about emotional openness might deter others from coming up. The argument swiftly became ideologically divided. Conservative pundits supported Maher because they saw his roast as a protest against the hypocrisy of the establishment. Progressives, however, were split. Some thought Maher's quips contributed to a larger culture of sexism and character assassination, while others believed Meghan's media presence occasionally appeared fake. The focus shifted from a single podcast moment to the kind of emotional outpouring that society accepts and rejects. Ultimately, Maher made no retractions. Apparently pointing out acting is now a hate crime, he tweeted in response to the criticism, displaying his typical blend of sarcasm and indignation. Whether you like him or not, it was obvious that Maher had done what he usually does: provoke awkward discussions, question untouchable narratives, and ensure that no one is beyond scrutiny, even in the realm of carefully manicured aristocracy. Bill Maher's dismantling of Meghan Markle was just another example of his provocation. He rekindled discussions about media manipulation, authenticity, and celebrity culture with a single viral podcast moment. Whether we agree or disagree, Maher's voice breaks through the clutter to remind us that nothing is off limits in the court of public opinion, not even royalty.